Telescopes, everybody! So we're doing a rant about telescopes for the next X minutes in time. And I've set up a premium level slideshow here on the stream for you. And then, you know what? I just need to move this down just a... Or, you know, let's put it over here. Let's put it over there. And you can see the chat. You can see everyone's live reactions. If we had a viewer counter, you could see that thing go straight down into the ground. Over the last little while, I have become increasingly obsessed with, astronomy and telescopes and all sorts of that kind of deal. But this has been a long-running thing. I have been wanting to get an actual telescope for a long time. So you don't actually need to see that right now. It's story time before we get into this. But like, I've always been interested in astronomy, you know? It's fun stuff. Universe is great, right? And when I was living in Hawaii, subtle flex, you could actually see like the observatories on top of Mauna Kea from like my house. So you could wake up in the morning and like drink your little tea, like look out the window and see Mauna Kea, and you like see these tiny little white domes of like these billion-dollar crazy telescopes in Hawaii and stuff. It's pretty fun. I actually got to visit them one time, and they're fun. Like the Keck Observatory and all that. It's super cool. I didn't like get to go inside or anything, so you know, maybe one day go visit. Whenever I go back, I definitely want to visit. But we had these like crazy calendars that we had, like some of their pictures. Really cool stuff. So, it's been a long-running addiction with, you know, being obsessed with astronomy. Not astrology. Two very different things. One is actual real science facts, and the other one is just a whole bunch of, nonsense that doesn't matter. And if you like astrology, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but you're probably not gonna listen to me anyway. So, there's that. So, for the last couple of years, I've been wanting to get myself a telescope, because I live in kind of a dark area, and, like, I'm a night owl anyway, so why not, right? I'm living in, like, Bortle 3 right now. If that means something to you, then you know things. If it doesn't, then it just means that there's less light pollution. But you can actually do quite a bit with even a little basic telescope. At least see the moon from, like, wherever you live. But even then, like, you don't need a dedicated telescope for that. You can get some binoculars or something. You'll be able to see the moon pretty well. Hey, if they don't tell me how a Pisces is, how will you know who you are? Yeah, how are you gonna know what your personality is? Okay, side rant. How are you gonna know what your personality is if someone doesn't tell you, right? How are we going to instantly judge people just based on the time of day / year / minute / second that they were born? Don't worry, guys. Mercury's in retrograde right now, so I'm allowed to say all these things and be abrasive. Anyway, side rant over. So yeah, I've been wanting to get a telescope for like a while now. And I finally did it! I did the thing! This is where our slideshow comes into play. So I'm gonna give you a deep dive, now a surface level deep dive on astronomy. So this is like your basic telescope right here that you probably see that like every kind of kid's toy basically is. Like your classic spyglass, literally like your spyglass based. Yeah, basically this is what this is. This is a refractor telescope. So like the lens is at the front and then it like focuses the light down the tube and then it goes into the eyepiece at the end. And that's what that is. And then you also got your reflector telescope. This is kind of like your slightly more advanced one, but also, you know, all three of these different types have varying levels of advanced and sophistication, right? So all three of them are perfectly valid for high-level astronomy and astrophotography and all that stuff. But this, you know, just going over the different types here. So the light comes in through the front of that, bounces off the back, and then goes up to the front again and into the eyepiece, basically. That's how that works. And then there is your Schmidt-Cassegrains. These ones are usually quite a bit wider. So, like, these can be up to, like, 14 inches wide, you know? And then they have a mirror at the back, and it focuses that light onto a second mirror. So light comes into the front, hits the back, it goes back up to the front, and then back into the eyepiece in this kind of, like, diagram. So the focal length is quite long, but your aperture is quite wide, right? So that's, oh, you can't really see that, can you? Here, let me zoom it in for you. And then, so when you get into, start doing some research, you'll know that there's like two different coordinate systems for finding stars. Because if you want to actually like go look at some things, you kind of got to know where they are, right? So there is altitude azimuth, or alt-az, which is way easier to say. So that's what we'll be saying. And it's also way easier to spell and write. It's just overall a better name. And this is a coordinate system that's based on you. It's relative to where you are in the world. It's relative to you. So if you move around, it moves with you, basically, right? And then you have your normal coordinate system And this is based on like the actual planet itself. So if you move, you're moving through the coordinate system, right? So if you know the coordinates of star, that's where it always is, right? If you're using this this coordinate system. Whereas if you get the coordinates of a star without as, then that changes. It moves and it changes throughout the night as the stars move across the sky. So this is relevant for the type of mount that you use, because there's alt-as mounts, and then there's equatorial mounts, which are two very different things. But yeah, here's like the coordinate system for like actual stars and stuff. As you can see, it's based on where the planet is. You know, it's got your degrees and minutes and hours and all that fancy stuff, all the things that you would expect. Right, so you got your basic mounts. Normally, these are going to have like some sort of little knob on there that you just kind of churn to adjust it, and you know, overall kind of horrible. I genuinely wouldn't recommend this kind of thing unless you're doing like land-based observations, in which case it's going to be fine for you. Maybe for the moon you could do something, and you know, if you really want to fiddle around with it, you could have some sort of mount with some little knobs on there that you could twist and turn to align to what you want to see. I had one of those originally. I had like, you know, a little reflector with a manual equatorial mount, which is just the worst thing ever. A manual alt-as is much easier to manage. As you can see, equatorials get complicated with the math and the latitudes and the declination and the right ascension and the polar alignment and the weights and the knobs and the twisty turnies and listen, it's complicated if you want to try and do that manually. But luckily, we're living in the 21st century, and gone are the days are Galileo. Now we can use our smartphones to help guide us to stars, right? So these are the StarSense telescopes. So this uses like your phone camera to help guide you to things. I haven't used one of these, and I decided not to get one of these. I was looking into it, and I was like, oh, this has the manual mounts. Bleh, nasty, gross, get out of here. Disgusting. What is this? Listen, I've had a telescope in my Amazon Save for Later cart for like 3 years now. And I finally bit the bullet and was like, okay, what do I need to know about telescopes? And now I'm passing that information along to you. Anyway, so I wouldn't really recommend this, but you know, if you have one, it could be kind of fun. But it also relies on your smartphone camera, and I'm not sure how reliable that would be. But hey, you know, it could be fun. But what's better than that is an automatic alt-as mount. This is sweet. So I got one of these, and this is definitely like the way to go. If you are wanting to actually get into the hobby, get like a Nexstar 4SE. People sell these things used all the time. You can get a great deal on one, like I did, and you'll be set. Because how this works is you can literally just go point it at like any 3 stars in the sky. It'll do a little bit of math. It'll figure out exactly where it is, and then it will automatically slew or move. We're using fancy terminology now, and it'll automatically slew to the position that you tell it to go to. So you can align it on like, you know, Polaris and then like a couple other stars, and it should just do some math. You put in like your coordinates or your rough location using like city and time zone and date and stuff. That's a little bit annoying to do it manually, but don't worry, we'll get to that. Yeah, it can just like automatically know and calculate where everything is, and then it can take you on a little tour. It can like show you some things. It can track the moon. But this is alt-as. Now the thing about alt-as is that when you are tracking something across the sky, we gotta go back. When you're tracking something across the sky, it is going to rotate within your field of view. So if you're trying to do astrophotography, which I guess I'm trying to get into now. I am trying to get into. It's going to rotate in your field of view, clockwise, counterclockwise, whichever way. Now, if you want to avoid that subtle rotation over the hours, then you have to get an equatorial mount. Ta-da! And these things are stupidly expensive because everything in astronomy is. We'll get into that as well. Don't you worry about it, but look at all these. So every equatorial mount, or at least the automated ones, have a little bit of a manual alt-as built in, because you're supposed to align these things with polar alignment to either the north or south pole. So usually they'll come with like a little hole in them or something that you can use to align a Polaris, and then when you fire them up, they'll also have a hand controller, and then you will basically be pretty well good to go, because it already knows that it's lined up on Polaris before you even turn it on. And then you still got to do a little bit of alignment and tracking, so you slew to a couple different stars, and then it will realize any discrepancies within its internal gears, because of course, you know, there's no such thing as like a perfect mechanism, right? So it'll self-adjust, right, to help you get better tracking and better alignment, all those sorts of deals. We'll get into that later, maybe. Don't want to get too far into the weeds now. What's next in my slide? I forget. Oh yeah, so this is what an actual star might look like if you look through a telescope, by the way. You're not going to see anything too crazy if you're just like looking with your eyeball. It's basically a point of light. The smaller it is, the more in focus you are. And that's, you know, this one's even got like a little bit of aberration around the edges. But that's basically what it's going to be, right? Excuse me, I'm trying to give a tutorial on how to spend a lot of money on things that you probably shouldn't. Then we have actual planets. Ta-da! You might actually see a planet or two. I actually did see Saturn 2 nights ago. That was really cool. Like actually being able to see like other planets with your own 2 eyes. Man, it's so cool. But it's not going to be too crazy. As you see, even with the stream compression and then the YouTube compression and all that, it's going to be pretty similar to this. I saw it like with the rings dead on, but we'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, it's not going to be anything too crazy. Like if you want to look at a nebula with your plain eye, it's basically going to look like a little bit of a cotton ball. I haven't been able to see a nebula yet. We'll get to that as well. You're definitely not going to be seeing anything like this with your own eyes. This is, unless you are physically the James Webb Space Telescope or Hubble, you ain't seeing things like that. Now, that being said, if you get some proper astrophotography gear and a good rig going, you might actually be able to do something like this, where you can take a bunch of images and a bunch of long exposure images, stack them together, and as long as you're tracking and alignment and your gear's all set up pretty well, then, you know, you might be able to make some pretty cool things like this. Now, you also have the ability to do... I jumped too far ahead. This is pretty much what that kind of rig is going to look like. This is like $5,000. So, you know, careful what you get yourself into. You might accidentally spend your life savings, and then that's like a medium grade astrophotography rig as well. These things get expensive. There's mounts that are $5,000. Okay, so listen, it's stupid. It's stupid, but it's fun. It's stupid. But you might also be able to do some solar astrophotography as well. Obvious note here of like, don't point anything at the sun unless you're professional. I did get a solar filter for my telescope, so I definitely want to try this. Definitely gonna go stare at the sun through an overly expensive eyeball and see what happens, right? But I mean, that's pretty sweet. Look at that, that's pretty cool. And then if you also do a little bit of better photography, then you might be able to see some things like this. This is pretty nice. Like, that's a great picture of Jupiter. I'd be super happy with that. If my pictures came out like that, man, that'd be sweet. Seeing Mars and stuff like that, that's so cool, right? Yeah, it's definitely false color images with the nebulas and all that too. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, our eyes are not nearly as good as they could or should be. So we have to supplement our eyes with, you know, professional optics and cameras and DSLRs or specific astrophotography cameras and stuff like that, which is a little bit unfortunate, but your eye can't take a long exposure image no matter how much you try. So you're not going to be able to see these crazy colors of nebulas and all these things. Now, if you're lucky, I think you might be able to see, if you get really lucky, you might be able to see some of the aurora on Jupiter and Saturn, because they do have crazy auroras. But I think you have to be pretty lucky to like get the timing of that down and then also see like the faint colors. You might be able to do that with your eyes. I might be making some stuff up here. So, I mean, you could also look at the moon. This was made with like a generic DSLR and also a Nexstar 8SE with like an alt-az mount. So, I mean, clearly you can do some really insane stuff with a not super expensive setup, but we'll get into prices later because this stuff is stupid. But yeah, look at that image. That is so cool. Now, that is actually real color as well. There is a little bit of blue and red on the moon. I believe it's from like titanium and aluminum or something. But your eyes can't pick that up normally. But this is with a bunch of exposure images and stacking and software and stuff like that in Photoshop. A little bit of post-processing enhancement, but that's like amateur astrophotography right there. So pretty awesome. Like that's such a good picture. In August 2025, there will be a 6-planet solar alignment. What? That's exciting. I gotta get my scope figured out before then. We'll get into that as well. But anyway, what's next in my slideshow? Yeah, so you can do some basic astrophotography just with like your cell phone, because they make these little holders that you can just like plug your cell phone onto pretty much anything with an eyepiece. A microscope, some binoculars, a telescope, really anything you want. It's a little bit finicky. Like I have this exact one, smartphone not included, Um, it does say smartphone not included on that. Unfortunately, it does not come with a smartphone, guys. That looks like a 2004 smartphone. It's got the home button on it still, bro. It would be cheaper if they did give you one. Nobody wants those anymore. But yeah, you can do it. It's definitely a little bit finicky. I had to like readjust it every time I took it on and off, which like shouldn't happen. It's got some pretty serious little twisty knobs on there. Anyway, or you can go serious with your astrophotography cameras, and they got cameras all the way from $600 up to $4,000. And then, you know, they also have the $15,000 camera. It's pretty stupid. So as much money as you feel like burning, you will certainly have the opportunity to burn as much as your heart desires. As much as your heart personally desires. But hey, look, it's got free 2-day shipping on it. I mean, that's worth $15,000. Now, we're not even going to touch on filters or eyepieces or Barlow filters or cameras, guide scopes or guide cameras, because we ain't got time for all that. Listen, I got to mine some more sand, and we got to talk about so many more topics. So as deep as you want to get into these things, okay, maybe we can talk about them a little bit. As deep as you want to get into this hobby, you can. But the filters help you block certain wavelengths of light so that, you know, there's like a moon filter, so it's not blindingly bright. That can be really helpful. I do have a little bit of a filter kit that came with my scope, but these are really helpful just for like playing around with things and generally bringing out different colors on stuff. Of course, there's a bunch of different eyepieces and lenses. You know, the smaller your millimeter eyepieces, the more magnification that you get. You don't get zoom, you get magnification. And then, of course, there's Barlow filters. These can be 2 times or 3 times or 4 or 5 times magnification, basically, but your field of view shrinks whenever you magnify too much. There's also reducers as well, so if you have a really high focal length, you can get a reducer, and that will make your telescope faster, which we don't have time to get into, mostly because I don't fully understand it, but don't worry about it, it's fine. And then you got guide scopes as well. This basically helps you track your stars and helps you get better alignment and better tracking and better auto tracking for astrophotography, because you want extremely good, extremely accurate tracking. That way you don't get star trails when you are trying to take a picture of things that are millions of light years, okay, maybe not millions, tens of thousands of light years away. Deep space objects are far away, and you need incredible tracking and alignment in order to keep those things in a stable, steady position for, you know, 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, 10-minute tracking, 10-minute exposures, right? So I have not gone down the rabbit hole of guide scopes or guide cameras yet, but I know eventually I will need one. So, woo! So this is what a more professional rig looks like, but obviously with horrible cable management. I just wanted to point this out because it's funny to laugh at. Like, you spent like $8,000 on this and it looks horrible. But wait, there's worse. Oh my god, look, it's just, oh my god, it's horrible. Listen, we use them at nighttime. Nobody needs to know. Nobody will see it. Listen, the stars can't judge you, but I can. So these telescopes are mildly expensive if you do want to buy them used. I would highly recommend that you go for used gear, because unless you actively throw something down the stairs, you are pretty fine off with some used gear, right? It's all pretty durable stuff. Only thing I would maybe be somewhat careful about is like the actual scope itself, or the optical tube assembly, or the OTA. Listen, I've gone down the rabbit hole with all the lingo. Not all the lingo, but a little bit. Just enough to pretend like I know what I'm talking about on stream. But yeah, the A to C is like $1,500 new, so obviously I didn't want to do that. But I got one used with like a whole bunch of extra stuff for a fairly good deal on the eBays. But you can usually find one for like $800 maybe, like the 8 SE. If you want to get a 4 SE, which is 4 inches wide instead of 8 inches wide, still perfectly capable telescope. Just doesn't collect as much light, you know. 'Cause telescopes are just light collection tubes, essentially. That's all they do. They just collect and focus light. But you can find really good deals. Marketplace, Craigslist, cloudy nights, class fields, but I think you're gonna have a pretty old account to be able to do anything on cloudy nights. There's definitely ways. eBay, maybe Mercari. Mercari is so expensive though. Generally, you'll have a pretty easy time finding a used scope or mount. Tripods and basically any other accessory on the planet, difficult to find. Lenses and Barlows, you can find those though. But then there's also, yeah, see, this is the 4SE. That's like It's like 500 bucks new. So like you can find those used for pretty good deals, because a lot of times people will upgrade their stuff and then, you know, they'll sell whatever their secondary original scope was. And like these are new prices, so you can definitely get a good deal. Or you can go the complete opposite direction and try and get yourself a an equatorial mount. And those are at least $1,000 new. Advanced AVX, I believe, is the lowest grade Celestron one. That's $1,000, brand new. But that one's also not really that great. So then the next step up from that is the CGM 2, $2,000 new. Generally, you can find it used for like 12 or 15 though. But the step up from that one, basically identical but a little bit better, is the Skywatcher EQ5R Pro. EQ6R Pro, whatever it is. Can you see some of Jupiter's moons with binoculars? Yeah, you can actually. It's pretty cool stuff, especially if you got like a really clear night. Like in Hawaii, you can definitely do that. Hawaii's got great optics. Now you also need to be aware of like your actual viewing conditions where you live as well. Like you don't want to go overboard without knowing where you are sitting with the light pollution. If you live in the middle of a city, you probably shouldn't go out and get something crazy. But if you travel a lot to somewhere, you know, family, you got someone living out in the boonies with like cornfields all around or something, or a good empty backyard, you can have a good time. There are maps online where you can check out your Bortle grade, which is just a way of measuring light pollution. Uses Google Maps and stuff like that. And pretty much anywhere Bortle 3 or 4 or lower, you're like totally set. You can do some great viewing, some great astrophotography, but also those like things like air turbulence and just weather and clouds and things like that. The more that the stars are twinkling, basically the worse your seeing is. Yeah, if you live in a city, you'll still be able to see like maybe Venus and the moon and obviously some of the brighter things, but generally you're gonna have a harder time. People can do it, but that's like with really good rigs. A lot of work and a lot of dedication. Luckily, I live in the middle of nowhere, so I can do whatever I want. Nobody will hear me scream about seeing Saturn in the telescope. Actually, they might, but you know, whatever. They can judge me. We'll get to that later. So this mount right here is also $2,000. It's stupid. Oh yeah, no, okay, now here's an actual rant section. So, I found one of these, the CGM 2, but it was just the mount head of it. Just the top, no tripod. And it was for an amazing deal. Amazing deal on eBay. Like, literally, it was $600. That's how much it was. Okay, listen, it sounds like it's $2,000 normally, okay? Don't judge me. It's an incredible deal. Look at that. 600 bucks for this? But it didn't come with a tripod. So that's where the problem comes from. Okay. Now, I did my research beforehand, before I, like, bid on the thing. Okay, I did my research. I didn't just make an impulse purchase. Not entirely. Not entirely. Sold. I know, right? It's a good deal. If I want to, I can resell it and probably make some money for it. Now, the thing about this is that the tripod is listed on B&H Photo. I have a real gripe with B&H Photo, because it's listed here. This is the exact tripod for it. 300 bucks, reasonable, comes with weight. Those weights are stupidly expensive. We ain't got time for that. It's not actually for sale on B&H Photo. They have a listing for it. It shows up in Google. The only place on the internet that it shows up. They do not sell this. As you can see, it says, ask an expert. It's not for sale. It is not for sale. It's only a listing for the information. Yeah. So, this is the stupid tripod. Now, I did a full week of research trying to find this tripod, because the auction ended before I realized that B&H Photo didn't sell the tripod. So then I had this 40-pound mount head. Oh yeah, by the way, these things are very heavy, by the way. They are incredibly heavy. Just the head of this thing is like 30 pounds. It's huge. Like, when this stands up, it's like 5 feet tall. It's literally ghillie-sized. It's stupid. With the scope on there and stuff, it's actually human-sized. But I did a full week of research. I even went and made a Reddit post, so that's how desperate I got. I made a Reddit post asking anybody, like, hey, what can I do to try and get a replacement for this thing? I even emailed Celestron. They took like a week to get back to me. And they were like, yeah, we have one you can buy. It's $460. It's like, what? But yeah, I have to be really desperate to make any form of Reddit post or asking people on the internet for information, because I'm not special. I know any issue that I have, 100,000 other people have also had. And there's probably a 12-year-old Reddit post with 3 upvotes that has my exact solution. But after a bunch of digging, I did find out that the exact mount for the EQ6R Pro, the tripod is exactly the same for both of them. So I got this off of B&H Photo. They still got my money, and it was like $200. It's like, good deal. It's like, fine, okay, sure, whatever. I still had to buy the stupid counterweights separate though, because reasons. Because those are stupid. Also, astrophotography, or just astronomy in general, is generally expensive. This is a screw. It's like the head of this thing is like maybe an inch wide, and it is, wait for it, it is $27 for that screw. And you know what's better than that? It's on back order. So people are actually buying that. It is stupid. Actually, your Gilly's always catching strays. Listen, it's funny. I needed something to keep chat's attention, okay? Somehow we haven't lost all the stream viewers. I'm glad you guys are buying the rant. I'm making you fall for educational content. Haha. So that's a thing. You can sign up for an email list for when it's gonna be back in stock. It's literally just the screw that goes onto the end of this weight bar so that your weights don't fall off. It's literally just a screw, my guys. It costs less than 3 cents to make it. Oh yeah, I got my telescope. I set it up. Great. And here's my first picture of Saturn, guys. It looks so good. It's so good, guys. Granted, this was through a window, but it's so good. Yeah, it looks worse on screen. On stream, but don't worry, you know what, it's the compression helps me here because it's way blurrier on my end. Listen, shut up, it got caught a grain of rice by Smedrix, and I don't blame them. So Prince of that, yeah, kids first astrophotography image. I was really trying to get it to focus. It just wouldn't. I was looking through a window, and I think that's what really killed it. I had like one of those stupid storm windows up. I couldn't get it down. So it's like, oh, I guess I'll just deal with it. But also my culmination was probably off as well. And what's culmination, you'll ask? It's focusing of your second ring on a Smith Cassegrain. Do you remember 25 pictures ago? Hold up, let's go all the way back. Hold up. Do you remember, no, hold up. Do you remember this? Yeah, so the light comes in, it bounces off of your primary mirror, which is adjustable via tiny knob. By the way, you can twist that thing 70 times from one end to the other. So I had fun figuring out where the middle of that is, and like which one's actually which way to focus it, and that's fun. Anyway, so light bounces off your primary mirror, it goes to your secondary mirror, and this has 3 little screws on the back of it that you can adjust, kind of like its own little tiny tripod, like a bubble level, kind of like 3 little legs that you can use to slightly twist and turn and change the orientation of that mirror. And that's basically what culmination is. And I don't really know how to do it, but you know what? We got it to a point where it's okay. So here you can see a little bit of culmination. So if you unfocus your mirror, then you can, your primary mirror, then you can see a little bit of artifacting and how the light bends and turns, and then that'll give you an idea of how bad your culmination is. And then you can adjust those tiny little screws, trying not to damage your primary piece of glass on the front, whatever that's called. I forget the name of it right now. Listen, it's kind of a pain. I still don't really know how to do it, but I'll figure it out. Yeah, some more information there for you. But then I got this picture of Polaris with my phone. Now, I'm not sure why there's the diffraction spikes to either side. I'm not sure if those even are diffraction spikes. It's probably because of the dew, if I had to guess. But we'll get to that in a minute. Listen, that's a very long rant. But yeah, that's my first actual picture of a star. Maybe not my very first one, but like the best out of the pictures that I took. And then, wait for this. Boom! Saturn, everybody! I got a picture of Saturn. It's a little bit overexposed, but it's better than the other one. I think my culmination's still a little bit better off, or still a little bit worse than it should be. But I actually got to saw Saturn with my own 2 eyes, and it looked pretty good. It looked way better than obviously that picture, because I was still messing around with like the pro settings on my phone, and you know, exposure rates and ISO levels, and you know, all that stuff. And we don't have time to get into photography basics in this rant, so we just won't do that right now. But overall, it looked like at least 6 times better. That image right there is like genuinely pretty cool. Rings are dead on, so it's just like a flat sliver. I didn't see any moons or anything, but again, it was like a fairly clear image, even though I had at least a gallon of dew on the front of my scope. This is not my picture. Don't try and analyze it. But yeah, look at this. This is what dew looks like. Mine was worse than this. I think I was literally in a cloud. The telescope was covered in water. The lens was covered in water. I was covered in water. Everything was covered in water. And is just disgusting. Mountain Dew, I'm pretty sure I was doing the dew. I'm pretty sure that's how that happens. So what happens here is this is temperature differentials causing moisture in the air to collect on things. That generally happens when hot air touches something cold. Like if you don't have air conditioning in your house and you get a bunch of water on the outside of your toilet, like the back of the toilet, the tank, which happens with mine, that's because hot air, which is larger, holds more moisture than cold air, which is smaller. So hot air touches the cold outside of your toilet bowl tank thing, not the bowl, the tank, and then it becomes cold air, and then it leaves all that water behind, and then you just get a bunch of condensation. Same thing happens on a cold glass of water. Probably the more sanitary explanation than literally toilets, but alas, I am too far in now. This is because your lens is too cold, so it's losing heat very easily to the atmosphere. So you can put a little cone around this thing. We have a picture of this accidentally. But you can put a little cone around this thing, and that will help collect or keep some of that heat in. But it's basically just kind of delaying the inevitable at that point. What you really need is you need a dew heater. Now, I spent all day yesterday going down this rabbit hole because it's also stupid. So there's two different methods. You can get these little dew heater straps. They're fairly cheap. They're not too bad. It's kind of a pain to get the right size, and because I have an 8-inch telescope, it does not. No one sells them the right size unless you want to spend 70 bucks. But also these wrap around the outside edge of your telescope. Now you can also get these for cameras and guide scopes and all these different things. Really any form of optics that you're going to be using outdoors, you can pretty much get one of these little warmers for. Now, the warmer itself, not too bad. There's also the ring, which is the one that I got. This goes directly on top of your collector plate, whatever the big piece of glass on the front's called, right by your secondary lens. And it just heats that up. And it basically, you don't want to crank the heat too high, because then you're also going to see the literal heat waves in your optics, and it's going to ruin your imaging. You want to keep it just a couple of degrees above whatever your dew point is. And also that helps you save battery power, but I'm not worried about batteries because I bought myself a 100-foot extension cord. I'm just running power from my garage, and that's way better than a $200 battery backup. We'll get into, listen, there's a lot of things. So now how do you power these things? Well, it's stupid. Guess what? Celestron has a solution, and it is $400. And I wasn't about to do that. That is ridiculous and stupid. So I decided to spend all day of yesterday and not do anything productive, but instead look up how to keep some slight piles of moisture off of a piece of glass. That was my day yesterday. That's what I did. That's what I spent yesterday doing. So now you can get your own custom little controller. I don't have a picture of that, but basically it's like this one. This is technically a smart system, so it detects the atmospheric temperature and like the moisture level, and then it like auto smart adjusts the temperature of your dew heater. So it's kind of cool, but like $400, $270. You can get these for $90, but then they also want to sell you a $90 AC power adapter, and that's pretty stupid as well. So it's pretty much just a scam either way you go. Now, if you go to Amazon, I found a video where you can literally just solder together your own one using an RGB dimmer controller, because these are basically just pulse width modulation, PWM controllers. And I was literally gonna go down the rabbit hole of like learning how to solder, because I've never done that, and then like buying all the little bits and pieces and like getting the thing and like converting this from like just straight up wires into like RCA connectors. That way I can plug it directly into this stupid guy, or like USBs, or like whatever, or like just like straight up what do you call it? It's like straight up little jacks. But I decided that none of this stuff was any good, so I decided to just throw all this away. And instead, what I'm doing is I'm just getting one of these little dudes, which is exactly the same thing with PWM. It's just like a little controller thing for LED RGB strips. That's what these little guys down here are for. Just like plug this in to a AC adapter, and then plug it into you gotta get one of these pretty much. This is later on, but yeah, you just like plug that in. It's like it just works, and it's like 30, 40 bucks. Soldering isn't hard. No, it's not. I just haven't done it before. I'm pretty sure I have the stuff for it. I just, I haven't done the thing. I haven't learned how to do the thing. So, this was a 2-pack for like an extra $1. So I figured this is probably super cheap and it's probably going to break anyway. So I'll get a second one. And then if I need another little bit of a dew heater for my guide camera at some point, or my other optics or whatever, then I have a second one. But yeah, now I went ahead and I kind of jumped ahead little bit of a jumping of the shark, and I went ahead and got one of these little things. I looked it up. These are actually super cheap. First of all, for astrophotography things, 60 bucks. Whereas normally, like, these kinds of power hubs are like $300, and this is gonna like balance out all your electrics and your currents and your loads and all the things, and stop you from zapping or power surging or whatever might happen. Electrical term here. That'll keep you from zapping all your electronics that you plug into it. So this can power the mount and cameras and guide scopes and like all these different things and dew heaters and all those. So I just went ahead and like got that now. That way I don't need to buy a separate AC adapter just for the dew heater. I could buy the AC adapter for this thing and then power the dew heaters off of that, and then they'll save me a little bit of money going forward. But, you know, not too much there. And then I think that was the end of my presentation. But basically, I have gone through probably 1,000 different tabs, literally 1,000 different like tabs on Reddit and Cloudy Nights and just like different places, doing research for these things over the last couple weeks slash month, and trying to really dive into this hobby. And I'm taking it slow right now, but I currently have the 8SC with an all-as mount, and I have the CGM 2. I haven't used the CGM 2 quite yet because it's very heavy. I want to build like a little cart for it, and then it's pretty nice to have both of them actually, because I can do like the serious astrophotography with the CGM, and then if I want to do something more portable, I can use the alt-as. But I'm probably just gonna sell the alt-as because I don't really need it. But it's still a great deal either way. I probably could have saved some money if I just did straight up just the CGM 2 and then just found the telescope on its own without having to get the mount. But you know, it is what it is, right? It's fine. I got so much free stuff with the stuff that I bought. Like, basically, the two guys that I bought from just completely sold out their entire hobby, which was crazy. So I literally have, like, over $4,000 worth of, like, stuff. I definitely did not spend anywhere near that amount of money. I promise you. I'm way too cheap for that. But they gave me a bunch of extra freebies in there. Like, I got extra carrying cases for the telescope itself. That's, like, 200 bucks. I got a carrying case for, like, the actual CGM mount head. That was, like, $400. Who buys these things? I didn't, but I got it for free. Got a bunch of lenses and, like, filters and, like, cleaning kits and, like, all these things for sort of free. Not really, but like I have extra stuff I can get rid of. Definitely don't want really all of that. But that's pretty much where I'm at with that. I will be using the telescope hopefully a lot more over the next couple of weeks. Once I get that dew heater in, then I'll be back to business. Just don't really want to use it without that dew heater, because it was like literally a gallon of water, and now I gotta go clean that plate because it was like, yeah, it was ridiculous, the amount of water that was on there. And then it all dried off and like left behind all this like kind of residue and stuff. It's like, well, great. What am I gonna do? Now, technically, yeah, sure, you can just use a hair dryer to remove the moisture from your lens. But again, you kind of risk like overheating it, and then you got those heat waves affecting your optics. And then also, you're still kind of evaporating that moisture, so you're leaving behind all the gunk. And also, if I'm out there in the middle of my yard using a hair dryer at midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., pretty sure my neighbors are gonna call, maybe not the cops, but definitely like some sort of insane asylum. I don't think that's normal human behavior. So I would like to avoid that, because you would definitely be able to hear that for a while. So I mean, technically, you know, my rights and all that, but also, you know, my perception to my neighbors mildly important, I guess. I don't know. I don't talk to them, so maybe they don't care. Normal human behavior is a myth. That's true. Let's see. Why am I still on this box? What else have I got? We got this, I guess. What's a cool thing to show you? Yeah, so I'm trying to avoid this. That's basically what I'm trying to avoid. And then basically, you see this like little ring around the outside edges? That is what I am replacing with a dew heater. This has been a 47-minute rant about me getting into astrophotography. We haven't really talked about astrophotography yet, because I don't really know what I'm talking about with that. But basically, I'm gonna try and use that alt-as mount a whole bunch, try and get familiar with that, get into the hobby a lot more, just learn things a whole lot, and then use my phone for some things. Try and learn a bit more about photography as well, because obviously I know a little bit, just being a YouTuber, but I haven't like messed around with cameras a whole lot. I do have a fairly old camera. I think it's literally 2007. Something that we got in Hawaii, so like it's pretty old. Generally, you can use a DSLR for astrophotography, but you need like a T-ring adapter to actually put it onto the front of your scope, and that's only like 20 bucks, no big deal. But you also want to be able to take the front lens off of your DSLR. That way, it's just like straight up the light sensor itself, and my camera definitely does not do that. So I don't think I can really use my camera for this, and also it's so old anyway that it's kind of like, I think I can literally buy this camera for $20. But you can get pretty good deals for cameras on eBay. Again, especially if you're not looking for lenses, just like the straight up body, like a $600 camera on Amazon, you get like 200 bucks on eBay. Obviously, you always run the risk of like, you know, getting a dud, but Amazon or eBay has pretty decent buyer protection. I haven't been burned. I'd be willing to take that bet. And then, yeah, so then you can also plug in like your whole system to a laptop and control everything from a laptop. Now, I do have a little Wi-Fi module because with these mounts, these Alt-Az mounts, they make a little Wi-Fi adapter. So they make a little Wi-Fi adapter where you can connect this to your phone, and then it automatically puts in your time, date, and location, which saves you a ton of time. And then you can just like click on something with your phone and it'll automatically slew to that target, and then it'll go look at it for you, and it'll like automatically track it for you. And it's like super cool, man. So that's pretty sweet. I have not used that with my scope yet, because it's a little bit finicky getting that stupid thing to work. But when it does work, it's great. Everybody usually bundles some extra bonus things with their setup, because a lot of people get into this hobby, they buy a bunch of new stuff, it's too expensive, then they don't have the time or the good light levels or good seeing, and then, you know, they don't use it enough, and then they try and sell it and, you know, make some of their money back. So you can usually find some pretty good deals from my experience. I got 2 really good deals, and I'm gonna be selling some of my extra bonus gear at whatever price I can really get for it. Again, just to try and make some of that back, because I still gotta get like some extra gear. But yeah, you can like set up your camera to a laptop for astrophotography, see what your camera sees on your laptop, control it all from there. You can control your entire mount from your laptop. You can do so much cool stuff, man. It's actually really cool how it like automatically just does things. And then if you have a guide scope and a camera, then those generally have a much wider field of view. So those can, from my limited knowledge on this subject, again, I haven't deep dived yet. I'm trying not to spend money on that aspect quite yet, but in a couple months I'll try and get there. But yeah, that has a much larger field of view, I'm pretty sure. So that detects little minute fluctuations in where the stars should be, and that can help you automatically adjust your tracking. That way you can do much longer exposures. Because doing a 1 minute exposure is better than doing like 6-10 second exposures. You just get much more detail and color and all these things. But then there's also like the image stacking software and post-processing and like all these things, and I have not had the time to look into all that yet, and I'm honestly not too worried about it because my current pictures look like, well, not this anymore, but they did look like that. But they currently look like this and this. But that was with like a ton of dew, so I'm hoping that quite a bit of this like artifacting and stuff is from the dew. I'm not sure, again, what's up with these big spikes. Not sure what's up with that. That might just be my camera. I did actually, this is unrelated, but I broke my camera lens, dropped my phone, and it's like the first time in like 8 years that I've dropped it, and it's actually taken damage. But I completely shattered my camera lenses on my phone. But luckily, that's $5 on Amazon, so, you know, that wasn't too big of a deal. But there could be like a tiny little bit of like fuzz inside my camera lens or something. Maybe a little bit of grime or something, or just the dew causing these like crazy lines right here. So not sure what's up with all that, but hopefully I get that sorted out. We can have some much better pictures, and then I'll definitely keep you guys updated on this. But that's generally my entire hour-long rant on astrophotography and astronomy, and definitely hating on astrology because it's silly, and you should not do silly things like that unless you really enjoy it. In which case, you know, I can't fault you too much, but you know, take whatever it says with a grain of salt, because stars are great, but they don't really determine anything about your life. They're just cool to look at, my man. They're just pretty sweet.